Cannabis Cowboys.
Imagine you're sat on a couch, surfing YouTube videos, and you stumble on a company called Juicy Fields, promising to double your money quick. All you have to do is invest 50 euros to support the cultivation of medicinal marijuana. Medicinal? Help people and make money, all from the comfort of your couch? Sounds good, right?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard to the Juicy Air. I'm Captain Brown.
Perhaps a bit too good to be true. That's what we thought anyway. But we gave it a go and bought into the scheme ourselves, just to see what would happen. I'm Nicolas Martin.
I'm Andreas Becker.
This is Cannabis Cowboys.
A story about big dreams,
Juicy money,
and never-ending hype. Brought to you by DW.
Episode 2, The Sky's the Limit. In Episode 1, we introduced you to Juicy Fields. We talked about the things that got us intrigued and some of the red flags that made us doubt their business model. And we met Eddie and Martin, two people who trusted Juicy Fields with their savings, thousands upon thousands of euros, and made loads of money.
In this episode, we head to Barcelona and one of the biggest cannabis conferences. We introduce you to some of the top brass at Juicy Fields. We talk to managers and try to find out who really owns the company. And we find out what happened to our very own virtual cannabis plant.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Juicy Air.
This is from a promotional music video Juicy Fields released in March 2022. It's a feel-good video. There's no mention of profits or medical cannabis. All you see is a group of funky people having a party, dancing and smoking oversized joints. Everybody is high as a kite. Literally, the party's on board an airplane. It's a crazy scene, but the pilot, Captain Blunt, and his co-pilot, Mary Jane, say they have everything under control.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard to the Juicy Air.
Captain Blunt is played by a man who looks like Homer Simpson, the cartoon character.
Everything's fine?
Everything's great.
Blunt is not played by a professional actor. His real job is CEO of Juicy Fields, and his name is Alan Glanse.
I'm Captain Brown, and I would like to introduce you my co-pilot, Mary Jane.
The video suggests that Juicy Fields, its staff and its followers, are fun-loving, easygoing and diverse. The video is screened during a party. The company's PR people loved it. We know that for a fact from a leaked memo, which we've voiced for this podcast.
We made an official release of the Juicy Air commercial video. This part was highly appreciated and we got many compliments for it during the night.
But at the end of the clip, something telling happens. Just before they land the airplane, the pilot, Captain Blunt, aka Alan Glanse, disappears. He's left an empty seat in the cockpit and one of the passengers takes over with the help of Mary Jane.
I can land this baby. Of course you can.
Little did the investors know that this video would be an indication of what would happen to the company. At the height of their success, Alan Glanse, the Juicy Fields CEO, just disappeared. He stepped away, leaving everybody else to fend for themselves. But more on that later.
At the time we went to Spain in March 2022, Alan Glanse was still in charge. We thought a cannabis business conference held in Barcelona would be the perfect place to meet Glanse and other folks from Juicy Fields.
Juicy Fields was one of the main sponsors of the conference, and they were determined to impress. 2 Lamborghini sports cars, decked out in company colors, were parked in front of the venue, revving up and ramming home the message of Lambo owners worldwide. We are powerful, we are successful, we have money.
Conference delegates from all over the world filled the hallways, the exhibition spaces, and the auditorium. It wasn't an occasion for standard business attire. After all, it was a cannabis meetup. There was more diversity in hairstyles and looks. than there would be at a regular business conference. But still, in the auditorium, industry professionals discussed growth figures, profit margins, and which country might legalize weed next.
I said, are you ready?
And then Hollywood made a show.
Let's hear it for Jim Belushi! There he is. Good to see you, man.
Jim Belushi, the actor, comedian, and musician, turned up to talk about his new career as a cannabis farmer and entrepreneur.
I just won't make love to you.
Well, I think everybody starts in this cannabis business because it's a gold rush and you think there's a lot of money in it. I personally did very well last year. I broke even.
In an exhibition hall next to the auditorium, dozens of companies presented their products and services. From weed grinders and grow lights to expertise on exports and compliance. Juicy Fields had its own booth, of course. Two women, both tall, blonde and Swedish, were in charge of public relations, and additional staff milled around. We stood around watching the scene while waiting for our interview with two of the company's key people.
I mean, the way they present themselves is quite funny, you know, with the two Lambos, with the two blonde girls, with the one girl with the super high heels. Like, they're really like, they want to show something.
If this is a Ponzi scheme, then it's just the perfect example for a Ponzi scheme, the way they present themselves.
A Ponzi scheme is an illegal business model, a scam. In a Ponzi, there's typically no product, just a constant stream of investors and fresh money. The profits of those who come in first are paid with the money from those who join later.
The extremely high returns that Juicy Fields promised to investors, their incredible growth story in an industry struggling to make a profit, all the red flags we detailed in episode 1 of Cannabis Cowboys left us wondering, was Juicy Fields a Ponzi?
At the time, despite all the red flags, Juicy Fields seemed to be humming along just fine. Investors were paid handsomely and on time. Everyone was happy.
But we dug deeper. We wanted to know how the company started, who the bosses were, and what they'd done before Juicy Fields. The company's origin story. And things just looked a little bit shady.
November 6, 2019 marks the first time that Juicy Fields pops up in an official document. On that day, a company named Juicy Grow was listed in Germany's official register of companies.
A few months later, in early 2020, the company's official website is up and running, JuicyFields.io. This is the platform people use to buy their virtual cannabis plants and manage their funds. The website's imprint, a section that is mandatory in Germany, lists Juicy Grow as the operator of the site, with an address in Berlin, same as that on the official company register. That document only lists one person as the company's director, a man named Viktor Bitner.
But on the Juicy Fields website, there was no mention of a Viktor Bitner. No name, no photo, no function. Which seemed strange because the website featured photos and short texts for more than 20 staff and collaborators, from CEO Alan Glanse down to freelance PR consultants. So why no word about the founder and potential owner, the man who was, at least on paper, more powerful than the CEO? Who was this Viktor Bitner?
This is from a video that was shared on Telegram. It shows CEO Alan Glanse handing over the mic to Viktor Bitner at a company function in a restaurant. A man in a brown jacket steps up. He's of medium height, a bit stocky, with broad shoulders, a slight paunch, and short black hair. Bitner addresses the group in fluent German. He's been living in Berlin for a long time and has a German passport at this point. His background is Russian. He was born in 1969 in the former Soviet Union, in Novodolinka to be precise, a town with many so-called Volga Germans. That's ethnic Germans who more than 200 years ago settled along the river Volga. All that is according to Viktor Bitner's German ID card. We've seen a copy of it and have verified its authenticity.
Before starting Juicy Fields, Bitner was more interested in sausages than in cannabis. According to British company papers, he registered a Berlin-based company with the name Wurstkönig, which is German for sausage king. Later, the name was changed and upgraded to Kaiserswurst, which translates as emperor's sausage.
The company's goal was to sell portable sausage grills for street vendors. In Russia, Bitner had even registered a patent for the design of these grills, with the gas tank to be worn like a backpack and the grill part extending to the front of the wearer. But Kaiserswurst failed. In 2018, the year before Bitner registered Juicy Fields, his sausage grill company was classified as dormant. Later, it was closed down and struck off the public records.
At first, we thought that Bitner's sausage grill company was just an amusing detail, without any significance. But then we got a bit nervous when we came across an article in the New York Times. The article, published in February 2018, detailed how an unnamed Russian had tried to sell material stolen or collected by Russian Secret Service agents to American Secret Service agents in Berlin. What made us nervous, you wonder? Here's what the New York Times wrote about the anonymous man.
The Russian was known to American and European officials for his ties to Russian intelligence and cybercriminals. He had a history of money laundering and a thin legitimate cover business, a nearly bankrupt company that sold portable grills for street-side sausage salesmen.
And there was more. In late 2017, a few months before the New York Times article was published, FBI agents interviewed Christopher Steele. Steele was a former British spy and the author of a dossier about Donald Trump and Russia.
In his interview with the FBI, Steele also talked about the incident described in the New York Times article, the attempted sale of information by spies from Russian Secret Service FSB. But in contrast to the New York Times article, Steele mentioned Bitner by name. The following is an excerpt from the FBI report about their interview with Steele. It was released by the US House Intelligence Committee, and we have voiced it for this podcast.
Steele advised that a vulgar German by the name of Bitner was an FSB agent under business cover.
To be clear, we have so far been unable to verify whether the man in the New York Times article and the man that Steele named as Bitner in his FBI interview and the Juicy Fields boss Viktor Bitner are indeed one and the same person.
It is possible that these are separate people. But as you will see, there was a recurring theme of a connection to Russia in our research of the Juicy Fields story. For now, however, Viktor Bitner remained a mystery for us, a phantom figure.
While Viktor Bitner was mostly invisible at Juicy Fields, Alan Glanse was something like the company's stagehawk, its public face. The website listed Glanse as its CEO, along with a photo and a quote that read, "I do not smoke cannabis, I am cannabis."
We really wanted to speak to Glanse in person. We were told he was there at the conference in Barcelona but unavailable, but that we could talk to two other people.
Hello. Hi.
This is Daniel.
How are you?
Hi, my name's Daniel Gauci, and I'm Chief Business Development Officer and Head of Content at Juicy Fields.
So first, there's Daniel Gauci. Gauci is from Malta and had a history of advocating the legalization of cannabis long before he got hired by Juicy Fields. His personal website is called The Gentleman Smoker. Daniel is probably in his 40s when we meet him and well-dressed, sporting a cannabis flower pin on the lapel of his suit. He is a bit of a dandy with an easygoing, boyish charm. If Glanse is the face of Juicy Fields, then Gauci is its voice. And then there's Thomas Stieger.
My name is Thomas Stieger, based in Switzerland, and we are taking care of the entire fund structure of Juicy Fields.
Thomas Stieger is in his 30s, with a shaved head and muscular build. He wears glasses with a bold black frame and a blue jacket with a matching pocket square. He tells us he's a banker and asset manager and that he'd worked in financial industry hotspots like Zurich and London before joining Juicy Fields. Now Steiger's job is to set up a fund to channel more money into Juicy Fields. The fund, he tells us when we step out of the conference hall, would be huge.
Today is the day where we will start to write history in the professional investment field for the medical cannabis industry.
The plan is to rake in 40 million euros. It's not for the average e-grower. The minimum deposit is 100,000 euros.
100,000 euros, that's the minimum. And this means basically we want to attract professional investors as well, in addition to clients which we have on the platform.
The platform, that is JuicyFields.io, the website where anybody could sign up to become an e-grower and buy virtual cannabis plants for as little as 50 euros a piece.
The fund that Steiger wants to set up is targeting people with more money, either rich private individuals or bankers who manage other people's money. For Juicy Fields, that is the next level for generating a constant stream of cash.
But until they set up the fund, most of the money comes from the sale of virtual cannabis plants on the Juicy Fields website. Investors are lured in by the promise of extremely high returns, more than 100% a year.
Which means, if you're able to pay out that kind of money, your business model has to generate even higher returns. The question is, how is that possible? What's their magic recipe? That's what we asked Daniel Gauci, the company's head of business development, but he is not forthcoming.
Well, if I give you the full answer, then we'll have too many competitors and be out of business. So I'm not going to go into the details.
In other words, the Juicy Fields business model is a secret. Of course, the company is under no obligation to share secrets with the public, but still, for a company that wants to convince people to trust them with their money, we think their reply is a bit vague.
Being a bit vague doesn't mean being dishonest. I think people are surprised that we're offering a good investment. People are not used to making good money anymore.
Daniel Gauci clearly does not want to go into details. So we ask him about the genius behind it all, the person or group who invented the secret recipe for these outrageously high returns. Again, Gauci is vague. We ask about Alan Glanse, Juicy Fields CEO, and Viktor Bitner, the director who apparently runs the Juicy Fields platform. Viktor Bitner is one of our founders, is all Gauci says.
There's a number of founders, some are even private, who will not release their names publicly. I mean, don't know what you want me to say about that. That's quite normal as well for companies.
Daniel Gauci does tell us that some of the owners have a Russian or Ukrainian background, but again, does not want to go into any details. So we ask him about the company's image at the conference, the Lamborghini sports cars and the rest of the show.
We have owners that sometimes like to be flashy, hence why they like cannabis and crypto.
But why does Juicy Fields even need to attract investors via its platform? If their business model is as profitable as they claim, couldn't they just borrow the money somewhere? From a bank, for example? A loan would certainly be cheaper than what they are offering to investors.
One of the major hurdles we have is that we deal with the three nasty C's. We deal with cryptocurrency, crowdfunding, and cannabis. So any banks, any kind of government institution, they see all them three, and you've got three red flags automatically.
Okay, so Juicy Fields say they cannot just borrow a few millions from a bank and pay that back with its supposedly huge profits. But we cannot get past the idea that paying investors more than 100% profit in a year is just unheard of. So we ask again, and we realize we may have hit a sore spot.
But this 100% return on investment...
Ask you a question, because you keep coming up, there's a point you're trying to make.
For me, I'm just fascinated...
No, because we keep going back to this juicy flash thing. Just ask.
For me, it's fascinating, 100%. Like, where else do you get that kind of return on investment?
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that jump. Look at the Tesla stock over the past 2 years. There's a lot of things that make over 100% profit. But because of all the red flags together, some people just think there's obviously something there. But go dig, go look, go talk to our partners, go talk to our lawyers, talk to us. I mean, I'm finding it really surprising why people are pissed off that they're earning good money. Are we only supposed to make 15% profit on things? Are we only supposed to make 30? Or are we supposed to make as much as possible?
It's hard to tell if Gauci is really annoyed by our questions or whether he's just pretending. But he might be a bit nervous because just a few days before our interview, Germany's financial regulator, known as Bafin, had woken up to Juicy Fields. The regulator had decreed that Juicy Fields was not allowed to recruit new customers from Germany until they had handed in a so-called prospectus.
A prospectus is a document with details about the business model behind an investment. Without it, no company is allowed to sell anything to investors in Germany, explains Dominika Kula, a spokesperson for the financial industry watchdog Bafin.
Wenn Sie eine Vermögensanlage, ein Wertpapier in die Öffentlichkeit bringen
Before you can sell investment shares or securities in Germany, you need to get the necessary documentation approved. If you fail to do that, we check up on you.
Wenn Sie das nicht tun, dann gehen wir dem natürlich nach.
A prospectus should give answers to questions such as these. What exactly do investors get if they invest in a cannabis plant? Who owns the actual plant? Where are the plants? What are the risks and who runs the company? All the information that Juicy Fields seemed reluctant to share.
Peter Mattel is a Munich-based lawyer who specializes in banking and capital markets. He's amazed that Juicy Fields thought they could get by without a prospectus.
If a company is not prepared to fulfill such basics as the publication of a prospectus, then normally you know what kind of people they are. They are not willing to operate and to conduct a serious business.
Setting up any investment scheme without a prospectus to keep the authorities happy is outright stupid, says Mattel. Because the financial regulator has the power to declare your business unlawful.
If your business is prohibited and this is published on the Bafin website, this is not very professional, or it's not clever, however you want to say it. It's stupid.
Even more so, since the financial regulator does not check whether the information provided in a prospectus is actually true. Bafin's Dominika Kula.
Die Bafin prüft, ob die Informationen in diesem Prospekt
Bafin just check whether the information is comprehensible, coherent and complete. We do not check whether the information provided is correct. So a prospectus approved by Bafin is not a seal of approval.
Dass dieses Prospekt besonders wertig ist oder eben inhaltlich geprüft wurde, das ist nicht der Fall.
At the time we met Gauci and Steiger in Barcelona, Juicy Fields had been operating its crowd-growing platform for almost 2 years without a prospectus. And then Bafin stepped in and stopped the company from attracting any new customers in Germany. But Juicy Fields' Daniel Gauci just shrugs it off.
We're not going to fight against the German authorities. If they tell us, stop, we stop. And then they tell us, this is what you need to satisfy it, and we can carry on. We think we're going to come to a reasonable conclusion where we'll be able to operate fine.
But Juicy Fields never handed in this prospectus. Instead, they kept saying for weeks and months that everything would be sorted out any moment with Bafin. Fans and influencers associated with Juicy Fields peddled that line in countless posts on Telegram, YouTube, and other social media.
During our interview, Gauci and Steiger promised to send us details about their revenue and total cannabis production. They never did.
After the interview, we asked them whether there was any chance we could talk to Alan Glanse, the CEO. Sure, he should be around here somewhere, they said. But we never got to speak to him in Barcelona, only much, much later via telephone.
Talking to the Juicy Fields guys left us a bit exhausted. Daniel Gauci and Thomas Steiger seemed likable, but we did not get satisfying answers to our questions.
Then again, what did we expect? Juicy Fields did not have to answer any of our questions. And as a private company, they did not have to publish any details on profits or even their cannabis harvests.
So they politely dodged our questions. And when they could, they gave us more spin about the great opportunity that Juicy Fields presented to investors.
Back home in Germany, the first harvest of our own virtual cannabis plant was ready to be sold.
Bafin's ban did not affect our harvest. Juicy Fields was only banned from taking in new investors.
So we logged into our Juicy Fields account, and there we see we have one Juicy Flash plant, 49 grams of harvest of dried flower cannabis.
108 days later,
we
can now sell our harvest.
And we can now click on sell, which we do. So, okay, a few minutes later, the website says the transfer was successful, and indeed, we check on our Bitcoin wallet.
Wow.
So the money's there. That means
everything works fine.
Perfect. Just like Eddie said, just like Martin said.
So far, there are no obvious reasons why we should say it's not working, it's a scam. Disappointed, Andreas?
Well, maybe we're just barking up the wrong tree.
There's a strange thing about money. It has the power to create its own reality. The money arriving in our account felt like a convincing argument in itself.
Eddie and Martin, the investors we met in episode 1, certainly knew that feeling. We had only put in 50 euros, not thousands like they had done. But when we received our payout, even we started to doubt our doubts. Maybe the Juicy Fields business model was legit after all. Maybe they had found a way to make good profits.
But the power of money works in more than one way. It may have made investors greedy, but it also made the people behind Juicy Fields get careless. After we received the payout, we decided to do it all over again and buy another plant. But this time under a new name and under a new account.
We set up a new account within minutes and were able to pay for our plant without any problem. It seemed that Juicy Fields was unable to resist our money. But that was a clear violation of the ban imposed by the authorities. Juicy Fields was not allowed to accept any new investors based in Germany.
This special power of money made us think again of Alan Glanse, the Juicy Fields CEO. The video where he played Captain Blunt, the pilot of a Juicy airplane, was not his only foray into music videos.
Money, money, green. It all started with a dream. Getting rich in the rush now, me. Money, money.
Glanse had also done a video with Berlin rapper and actor Wesel, with a song called Money, Money, Green. In the video, Glanse can be seen chilling on a deck of a yacht. He's bald, wearing sunglasses and an unbuttoned white shirt, a yellow jacket and a gold watch.
Money, money, green. Straight out of Medellin.
Cut to another scene. Now we see Alan Glanse dressed in business casual, walking through a greenhouse full of cannabis plants. He opens a glass of dried flower, inhales deeply, and looks into the camera with a smirk, as if to say, top quality.
One recurring image in the video is that of Russian matryoshka dolls. You know the ones. You open a large doll and inside is another smaller doll, which contains another smaller doll, and so on. Are these dolls a nod to Juicy Fields' Russian heritage?
Alan Glanse is like Viktor Bitner of Russian descent. He was born in the former Soviet Union in 1971, 2 years after Bitner, but says he has a US passport now.
Pointing to Russia seems like a cheap shot, given the current circumstances. With Russia's attack on Ukraine, all things Russian are seen as suspicious. But the Russian connection runs through this story like a thread, from the rise to the fall of Juicy Fields, as we will see in future episodes of Cannabis Cowboys. So we're standing there a week after the scam exploded, let's say, or was discovered. So since then, everybody is kind of like running around like headless chickens and nobody knows how much money is lost.
I had 350,000 euros in the account.
Quite a lot of investors has invested everything they had. everything.
I'm really sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on and what's happening here. I'm really sorry, guys.
Direkt am nächsten Tag ist auch jemand.
The very next day, somebody showed up at my house. He threatened my wife.
Gekommen, hat meine Frau bedroht.
More on that in episode 3 of Cannabis Cowboys. Up in Smoke. Cannabis Cowboys is a DW production, researched, written and presented by us,
Andreas Becker
and Nicolas Martin.
Our editor was Zulfikar Abani.
Audio editing and mixing by Simon Berghahn. Sound design, Warner Poland.
The executive producer was Judith Hartl.
Special thanks to Eugen Theise, Kathleen Schuster, Neil King, Rob Mutch and Kate Laycock.
Additional thanks to Henrik Böhme, Thomas Neufeld and the whole DW business team.
The cover was designed by Ilona Wendt and Nora Charlotte Tom. If you read about Cannabis Cowboys in a podcast newsletter, that's thanks to Sam Baker.
Boran Oeser took care of our promotion on social media and Christian Kühne of our distribution.
Legal advice, Tobias Würkert and Thomas Gardemann. If you'd like to send us comments and feedback, send us an email to cannabiscowboys@dw.com.
And we are constantly looking for new leads in this story, so if you have any information regarding Juicy Fields, we would be grateful for your help. Get in touch and send us an email to cannabiscowboys@dw.com.
If you like this podcast, hit subscribe, tell your friends, and leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platform.
Thanks for listening.